Okay. Hello, Simunza. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Pleasure, Igor. Always good to have conversations around how we can help entrepreneurs.
So I want to ask about BongoHive. So this is the organization that you work with. So what is it? What inspired its creation? And how has its mission evolved over the last 12 years?
That's a good question. So BongoHive is an entrepreneur support organization, or as we prefer to call ourselves, an innovation and technology hub. And the evolution over the last 12 years has gone all the way from supporting people around technology and giving them the confidence to think about whether or not they want to start businesses or build products that they can launch, the technology products that they can launch into the market, now down to supporting them around how they can build those businesses and run the businesses. And what we've done over the years is make considerations for how to do this and how to do it to be able to support a number of entrepreneurs. And what we've figured out over the years is running this using a cohort-based system, which brings in a number of entrepreneurs at a time that we can then focus on with regards to what might be good for them to learn, and access to experts, entrepreneurs, and at the final day, a demo day that introduces them to investors.
When we talked previously, you mentioned that you started focusing on tech entrepreneurs, and then you switched to supporting a broader section of entrepreneurs because of the pipeline. When we did a similar thing in Charlotte, there was some resistance from some stakeholders in terms of, oh, this organization needs to focus just on tech entrepreneurs. I'm talking about Innovate Charlotte, because we have a lot of support for regular entrepreneurs. They can get support everywhere. Was there a discussion about this shift when you changed the mission from focusing only on tech entrepreneurs to expanding the organization to serve a broader community?
There was some inertia, and funny enough, it came from people like me, who initially, when it was suggested, so we had on the team, we had the first entrepreneur program manager that we had, Mike. He was on the team, and then he suggested, oh, why don't we start to look beyond technology? And he was pretty passionate about social entrepreneurs, actually, and look at what we can do with entrepreneurs outside of the tech sphere. I initially thought it would go against our identity, and it wasn't cool enough, or whatever the case may be. But what made the case for it was we did a number of things to encourage or promote a spirit of entrepreneurship in the town. And the people that would come to our events included creatives, included people who are trying to figure out what they could do with land that they had on a farm, and other businesses, people who were making dresses, tailoring amazing dresses and taking them out in the market. They would pop in and would say, oh, we have this entrepreneur, and they're giving a talk. So the majority of the people that came in were non-tech people that would continue coming in for the events that would hold, and were enthusiastic and brought in a lot of energy to the space. And so that's what shifted my mindset around that, with regards to maybe let's consider going sector agnostic. But also with that was that, truthfully speaking, our pipeline for tech entrepreneurs was not as great as we hoped it would be. And so with the support of donors, we then designed programs, and we made them sector agnostic programs. And then entrepreneurs then started coming through for the various programs. We are now starting, not intentionally, that we've tried to restrict it, but we're now seeing more tech entrepreneurs starting to apply to get into our programs. And so when we've had to design programs that are focused on a sector of tech like fintech or agri-tech or climate tech, I think we're looking at smart cities now. It's because now the pipeline is better and we can now start to go back to what gives us it. But that doesn't mean that we won't talk to people that are from different sectors, because they're in our community. But also, the advantage of us having done that was that we learned a lot about other sectors. By getting entrepreneurs from other sectors to be in our programs, we then learned what the challenges were in agriculture. We then learned what the challenges were in education. We learned what the different, and then also saw opportunities where technology could be applied to the different sectors. So I like to say, if you're going to get software developers, they understand how to build platforms. But when you crossbreed them with other entrepreneurs, they then see the opportunities that lie where technology can be applied to various sectors.
I love this idea to kind of bring people from various sectors together to spur innovation. Another idea I had, and I wanted to get your perspective on this and whether it worked out, when I worked at Innovate Charlotte organization, my thinking was that typically to start a fintech company or a health tech company, you need to come from a somewhat privileged background. You need to have a certain circle of friends, you need to have a certain level of education. And at some point, like, people who are not coming from that background, their mindset is working differently, and they're not thinking in terms of scale, in terms of growing the business. And the resources that they are provided traditionally do not change that mindset. Whereas exposing people from both groups to each other creates opportunities that people who are not necessarily like Harvard MBAs can meet other technology folks and other entrepreneurs and can change their mindset. And their first iteration of the business is something not necessarily scalable, something lifestyle, but their next iteration is a tech company. I wanted to ask, have you come across some examples like that in?
That's a similar thing that we're seeing. So we're seeing that people who came in maybe now first two cohorts, either build lifestyle businesses or businesses that either fizzled out after a while. But the second approach now is they now understand why scale, they now understand market sizing a lot better and are thinking about scale a lot better and are thinking through who they need to have on the team a lot better and resources they need to be able to get it done. So there's something about people learning from their failures or from their first time at it. So that definitely will be similar. But there's also something to be said for people who, especially in certain sectors like fintech, there's also the advantage of experience. So you find that a person who used to work in a bank probably understands the nuances of the model and how fees and how many people you should have to break even and all of those things and considerations, but also understands the gaps that exist within the institutions that they can then handle. And also, especially if they're going to be doing something that is B2B, is people who are from within the sector understand that, okay, there are X number of companies that are in this sector that do this, But the challenge they all have is they can't communicate well around this thing, because they all have to come and sit around the table, or it takes 6 months before they actually resolve the numbers because nobody has got this. So if I build a platform that gets all of them to see what's happening in real time, and you're like, oh, I'm not from that sector, I would have never known that. I would have never seen that. So there's also that to be said about that.
So there were, just to clarify, to make sure I clarify, you are saying that there were some founders who started with lifestyle business, but then came back the second time and they built something more scalable, correct?
Yeah, we've had some entrepreneurs do that. Yes.
Thank you. This is like inspiring, and I think there is some resistance from some folks in terms of blending the two, but your answer kind of gives some validation.
I think it depends on who it is. I think funders and investors worry about if this is a first-time entrepreneur and they haven't figured out that they should be building a scalable business. And yes, when they pitch and when they talk about the business, they are talking about something that will scale, but they just haven't figured out what the levers are that drive that business towards scale. And that's why it ends up becoming a lifestyle business. So it's not that they intentionally are thinking small, is that when you have a conversation with them, they talk big, they talk about a good market size and that kind of thing. But then it fizzles out because they haven't put in the processes to think about, oh, how am I applying technology to actually reach a larger number of people? When they come around the second time, they've thought this through. They've actually taken the lessons from, this is what didn't work out. I didn't approach the market the right way. I wasn't solving the thing that actually makes it scalable. I was solving something else. Yes, I was applying technology to it, but where I actually see the wider scale is if I solve this piece of the puzzle. And so the second time they come around is there's like, no, I'm not trying to do everything I was doing last time. I'm now just solving this piece of the puzzle. And when you look at it, you're like, actually, that could take off, and they do better.
And thank you for providing this clarification. I kind of Googled your name, and a post on Facebook came up that said that you were part of a 3-week visit to the US program, the US embassy posted.
Wow, that's still up there? Okay, yes, that's true.
It was in 2015, so 4 years after you launched BongoHive. I was curious, what was the impact of the trip to the US? Were there any insights or things you saw in the US that you wanted to apply in your program?
The timing of that program was amazing. I think that was the first thing, was that I don't think we would have asked for better timing. It just happened to be that at the time I came to the US, it was my first trip to the US. I came to the US, it was just for context and those who will be watching this, it's the US government offers what they call an International Visitors Leadership Program that invites people from around the world to come and focus on or come and learn about how the US and the culture across various states treat certain topics. So they could do it around media, they could do it around government, they could do it around they can do it around various sectors. I just happened to be invited in a year when they were focusing on entrepreneurship and particularly how to support entrepreneurs. And so the 3 weeks that I spent, we traveled. We came in from, there were a good number of us, probably 150 of us. Wow. That came in from around the world. So it was from Asia and Africa. And I don't know if there were any from South America, but definitely Asia and Africa. We came in and the Middle East, yes, and the Middle East too. So we came in and then was split out into various groups. And the groups that we were in then visited different cities. So I visited 4 cities, which were started off in Chicago, went off to Seattle, then Miami, then ended in Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
And through this, we visited various programs that supported entrepreneurs, business schools like Kellogg. I think that was in Chicago. We visited Kellogg. We visited entrepreneur support organizations like hubs and accelerators, whether they were based in universities or not. The government's small business program. We did that. That was in Seattle. Yeah, it was in Seattle where we visited the government small business program. Went into the mayor's office in Miami and talked about how the Miami-Dade County supported entrepreneurs within the city and initiatives they had taken, like encouraging real estate developers to build buildings that housed incubators, with the hope that if people from those incubators then succeeded, they would rent offices within the building in the future. And so people taking bets like that, then ended up in DC, where we went to see both government and other programs in the process of doing that. What that did for us was, it was right around the time where we were designing our entrepreneurial programs right around that time. So that's why I said the timing was just like amazing for us, because we were like, oh, we want to start programs. And when we were in the process of designing them, then I left for the US. And with every trip, because of our time differences, I would go out and visit places, that get onto Slack and write all these notes on, oh, we visited Kellogg and these are the books they recommend. Or we visited this place and they recommend the business model canvas and they recommend this and they recommend that. Or this is how we visited this institution. This is how they apply mentorship. And this is how they've designed their curriculum. So that we got a lot of influence from a lot of places we visited in the way we designed our programs because of that trip.
So I wanted to follow up asking, how does BongoHive navigate the unique challenges and opportunities of operating an incubator in Zambia specifically, and in Africa overall, compared to more established ecosystems like Chicago or Seattle or Silicon Valley?
Oh, Silicon Valley, yeah. I think everybody places, and no fault of theirs, and they've done amazing work. Every place places Silicon Valley as the North Star. And what we've learned over time is, you learn to say, you go beyond the view of yourselves as an incubator and then look at the ecosystem and then say, based on a look at the ecosystem, then what are the gaps in our ecosystem compared to if we were to compare ourselves to like Boston, or compare ourselves to like Seattle, or compare ourselves to DC or other places, Kansas as well. Then take that view, then go and look at Europe and then say, how have these ecosystems, the French, Britain, Estonia, how they also implemented it. Then we came back into Africa and then say, okay, what's working in Africa and what's not working in Africa? And so if you're an ecosystem in Zambia, you then say, do we have the investors? Do we have the mentors? Do we have the experts? Do we have the physical infrastructure? What are the policies? Who should we be talking to? And so that then prepared us, or gave us the insight into, this is a long-range game. This is not something that we're going to solve in 1 year or 2 years. So if we're going to play this, we're playing for decades now, because it's all well and good to say we've got entrepreneurs at BongoHive, but we want our entrepreneurs to succeed. So which means the ecosystem around them also needs to develop in the process of doing that. Now, this is not BongoHive's job, but it's finding the right people in every piece of the ecosystem that buys into a vision or sees the future possibility of what an ecosystem in Lusaka could look like one day. So it's meeting that person in a meeting where they say a few things and they work for government, and you're like, you're the person I should be talking to. And you become friends, and like, yeah, let's hang out and let's find out, what are you doing? What's government trying to do? What are the challenges? They tell you, oh, the challenges, we can't find entrepreneur support organizations. Like, here we are. Let's start talking. And so you become friends. You become friends with the banks. You become friends with everybody. And you know that, okay, great. You might not be able to provide resources now. You might not be able to put in money now, but we just want you to see the picture. Then what we found over the years was people started to see the picture. After a few years, people started to see the picture, and we were like, some of our partners are people who would walk in and would say, hey, how do we get involved? And like, oh, why do you want to get involved? Like, no, we see that entrepreneurship is the engine of growth, and we believe that if we support, there's only an upside for us in the future. I'm like, yeah, and the entrepreneurs need your support. So if it's them offering advisory services, or being able to work with entrepreneurs from like a legal point of view or from a tax advisory point of view. So we've started seeing partners that might not contribute financially, but contribute an immense set of knowledge and expertise in kind, that if we were to pay, for example, the law firms we partner, like the top law firms in this country, if we were to pay their hourly rates, we would be broke 300 times over. But they are offering those hours to entrepreneurs that come in fresh off the street. And I don't know if the entrepreneurs actually know that you're dealing with like a top law firm. If you understood how much other corporates are paying these guys, but it's been good for the entrepreneurs to have that access, to be able to get good legal advice, to be able to get good advice, tax advice, to be able to understand valuations when they're going out pitching and stuff like that they would normally not be able to get at. And the journey continues, and it's still a lot of work to be done. And my business partner spends a lot of time these days talking to government about policy and startup acts and things like that. Yeah.
I love your point about the power of human connection and becoming friends with all those people. But what makes them like invest into the ecosystem? What's the secret sauce that makes them like consider this work a priority?
I think there's a place in people's. There are a couple of things. I think there's a place in people's minds where they want to do something good for society, and in the greater, and one, it's people get self-fulfillment out of it, or they believe it because it's part of their worldview. And then there's also an internal hope that we have that we can be better, and not just as people, not just as an individual, but as a society or as a country. So if a person believes Zambia could have stronger businesses, better businesses, and I'm seeing all these businesses that could have been great businesses make mistakes, but I don't know how to get involved with them, and I don't know where to find them. And so maybe you've complained about it a little too many times, and then you hear somebody else has a program that actually works with businesses very, very early. It might connect with you, and you say, how do I get involved with helping your businesses understand this bit, which I've seen so many other businesses fail at, so that they don't make that mistake as well. So there's that part of the conversation that we've seen. There's that part of the conversation that we've seen. Then there are people who want to give back. There are a lot of people. There are also just people who've been successful. I had a meeting with an local entrepreneur who runs an amazing business in organic foods, organic drinks, and health lifestyle type business, and it's grown. Great distribution around the country. Now they're even exporting that kind of thing. And interesting, she's somebody who's been on my radar and on my mark for a very long time, where I've always thought, like, one day I need to find a connection on how to get to her. And late last year, an email popped in through our website from this entrepreneur saying, "Hi, I love the work you do. How can I get involved?" So respond to her and say, like, "Hi, been trying to get a hold of you, and let me come out." And we're like, "Oh, great. Why don't you come over and meet me for 30 minutes? Go out." And all she said was like, "I've built my business. It's actually running well. I've got time now to mentor people." And I was like, great. So then there are people who also want to give back, because now they're at a place where they believe they've learned the lessons that they can now share with other people. And I'm 90% sure that we're now at a place where almost 90% of the people that we reach out to, whether they're in Zambia or not, whether they're in Zambia or not in Zambia, if I email them, WhatsApp them, call them, and ask for 2 hours of their time to meet with an entrepreneur, 1 to 2 hours of their time to meet with an entrepreneur, they won't say no.
Wow. No, this is awesome to be in that space. I wanted it, and it kind of, to me, it speaks to at least the reputation that you've built in the community. But are there any like tangible success stories you can share of startups that went through your programs at BongoHive and the impact they've had after graduating?
Yeah, I think the first impact for me is the entrepreneurs themselves, is seeing them come in and seeing where they are later on. So if I work with an entrepreneur, I've worked with an entrepreneur who came in, made dresses, and lifestyle business, pure lifestyle business. But in that year, made $400. That was it, like $400 in that year. And we worked with her, worked with our accountant, refigured out that she had got her pricing wrong, and continued to work around systems and marketing. And she's taken the steps with her where she's stumbled a couple of times, but gotten back on the horse after a while. And end of last year, having a conversation, and I'm like, and this is an annual thing that we do, which is a conversation between the two of us, where it's like at the end of the year, I'm just like, how much did you make last year? And this time I'm like, and I've seen her grow from that $400. I've seen her business grow to more than 200% every single year from that $400. And last year, I'm like, how much did you make? Because it's just like our tradition that we do every single year. I'm just like, how much did you make last year? She's like, $100,000. I'm like, from $400 to $100,000 in 6 years?
Wow.
And how many people do you employ? She says, I now employ more than 20 people. How many people? This is from, she used to be on her own. So now she has more than 20 people working for her. And I'm like, that's impact. That's here's somebody who's created jobs. Then we've had people who work in building financial institutions that came in with knowledge about what they wanted to do, set up small shop, serving loans, microloans, and came into a program that was focused on fintech, introduced them to investors, raised $600,000, another one raised $1 million, $650,000, another one raised $1 million. 2 years after that, revenue of over $1 million. And now on the second round, trying to raise $10 to $15 million. So I don't mind whether you're making $100,000 or you're making $1 million or making $10 million. I can see growth in the teams. I can see growth in the enterprises and how solid the businesses are as they start to go out. So those are fulfilling things. Those are things that we find fulfilling. Another team came in with one business idea, trying to introduce tech to small businesses, have pivoted out, gone off, different startup, connecting now, focusing on hardware, and now looking at entering another country, looking at entering the business into a different country. So it's things like that as hard as the work is, and so many nights of dropping on the bed, totally exhausted, makes me come back and say, like, yeah, but I can walk into an office and look at the enterprises that people have built, and it just feels good to think and say we were there for them when they needed help.
These are awesome examples. I'm especially blown away by this 400 to 100,000. And you mentioned now previous conversation that you have like a 3-tiered programs that idea validation, market entry, investment. So could you talk a little bit, and you already started answering this, so could you talk a little bit about your like 3-tiered program and how it helps entrepreneurs better navigate the different stages of their startup journey?
Oh, great. So I'm going to go back to 2 questions that you asked me earlier and touch on those slightly. So when we did that trip to the US and came back and then designed our programs, we decided to design programs at 3 different levels. And this speaks to when you compare yourselves with other ecosystems, you then find that it's one thing if you say, I'm based in Silicon Valley, where the infrastructure and the networks allow for investors and coaches and everybody to be there. And also the typical person that you're bringing in comes in from Stanford, MIT, Harvard, amazing business schools. Then I come back to Zambia, I'm like, okay, great. The local university, the university here, which is amazing, only introduced a business school less than 5 years ago. Well, now less than 10 years ago. And so the pedigree that you're going to get is going to be different because of so the people that you're now getting coming in to start businesses have never been to business school. So we then decided, let's start off with idea validation, so that if they have an idea, we hire the majority of the PC. How do we help them validate the idea? How do we help them get to a place where they get some sense of satisfaction that tells them that they're not either they've got a good idea or they shouldn't be wasting time on their idea? Because that's the where you don't want to be, is you don't want to be at the place where you're continuously talking to somebody who's like, but this is going nowhere. This is really, really not going anywhere. Like, let's help them figure out that first bit. And then the second part is market entry and them getting into the market, them growing in the market, which is, so the first layer was a program we called Discover, which was idea validation. Market entry or product market fit, the search for product market fit, we called launch, because then you launch your MVP and then you hopefully you start looking for. Then the final bit was an investor readiness program that we called Thrive. Then we can take any of these programs and then reconfigure them based on what we believe the needs in the market are, or where the support that we need to give towards entrepreneurs. So when we partnered with the UNCDF to design a program called FinTech for You, which was going to focus on fintechs, we took launch and then redesigned it for a sole focus on fintech startups.
So essentially, if I'm getting it correctly, you applied the experience from the US to come up with this idea. And you mentioned that you want to provide support. So maybe there are a few things I wanted to unpack. So what do you do in cases where this idea validation startup is struggling and the idea is not getting validated, but they like meeting with their support?
Yeah.
What happens there?
So we run that as a boot camp, and during that period, it's the key. I think the key thing that we want to transfer is you might be onto a problem with solving. Maybe the way you want to solve it is not the best way to solve it. So try to encourage them to pivot their approach to solving the problem. And also, it's a case of like, okay, great. Maybe the challenge here is, because it could be a number of things. Maybe the challenge here is that the market size is never going to be big enough to sustain the business that you're trying to grow. Or maybe the customers are telling you that this is not as big a problem as you think it is. So I think what we found more important for us is being able to help the entrepreneurs pick up a methodology that they can then use for their next idea, or as they continue to explore what would actually work, and keeping a door open that allows them to say, hey, you know what, I've got a new idea, this is what I'm working on, I did go and do customer discovery, this is the feedback that I got, but I'm not analyzing, I don't know if I'm analyzing this information correctly. Can I have a chat with you about it? Like, yeah, sure, come, let's have a chat about it.
So you have boot camps, and you also mentioned when we talked previously that you have both formal and informal mentorship. So could you talk a little bit about your mentorship program, and what do you consider the most crucial elements of running it successfully?
Great. So mentoring is something that we struggled with for a long time in the early years, and there were a set of we realized that there were a set of things we needed to get that needed to get right for it to succeed. So the need was clearly there. The need from the entrepreneurs to meet with mentors was clearly there. Then comes the question of who are the mentors going to be? Once you figure that out, like, okay, great, maybe they should be entrepreneurs, maybe they should be professionals, maybe it should be people who've got a specialization, whatever that's going to be. Then the next question comes around to like, but do the mentors know how to mentor? And what is expected of the mentors? So to standardize that and not take away the flair of the entrepreneurs or the mentors was, why don't we standardize a process that we can introduce to the mentors, and then if they do things within this framework, it still gives them liberty to be themselves, but still gives them an expectation of what's expected from them, so that at the bare minimum, the entrepreneur and the mentor have a baseline understanding of what they're both getting out of the relationship. Then beyond that, they're mature adults, hopefully they can figure it out. So we were fortunately, it looks like this was a problem that was continent-wide. And because it was a continent-wide problem, one of our, there's a program called Venture Capital for Africa, VC4A. They came up with a program that they call mentor-driven capital, that they started to roll out across the continent with various hubs. And when they came into Southern Africa, they talked to us and said, hey, is this something you would be interested in doing? Actually, we met at an event and I said, hey, I'm trying to solve this, and I'm trying to solve this thing around mentors. And I'm like, oh, we've just written a handbook for mentors. Like, give me a copy. Got the copy, came back, was reading through that, and we're like, oh, we just got some funding to run a program in Lusaka. Would you like to do it? I was like, yeah, let's experiment it with us. And like, come over, let's experiment it. And as per chance, it was just when the pandemic hit. So we ran the first workshop for the mentors, which was really a one-day workshop. So like a one-day workshop in the morning where they introduced to the framework and the style, like this is how often you meet and these are the questions you could ask. These are the things that could come up. And here's a handbook that gives you the different scenarios of questions that your entrepreneurs could come and ask you. What I also liked about the methodology is that because they come together in a group, the mentors also get to know one another and they know what each other's specializations are. So if by any chance a mentor says, my founder is asking me about distribution and that's not my strong point, he knows that within the group, there's somebody else who might have, that's their strong point. So he can reach out to say, hey, I've got somebody who needs distribution. Do you have time to meet with my guy or my lady to see if you can discuss distribution, my founder to discuss distribution. That happens, and amongst the mentors themselves, they start exchanging. We have a mid-checkpoint within the 3 months. Then at the end of the program, we have another check to find out whether that ran. Now we do checks on both sides, with entrepreneurs and with the mentors to see what's going on. So just to make sure that the mentors have satisfaction that the entrepreneurs are carrying their weight, and that from the entrepreneurs that what they're expecting from the mentors is actually happening. So that's how we handle the formal mentorship. But then there's an informal side where there are people who might not have the time to commit 3 months of working with a founder, but we know they have certain expertise that we sometimes need. So I'll have somebody in the ecosystem come to me and say, hey, I've worked in investment banking. This is my experience. I've raised so many funds and I've done this. I'm great at valuations, and I wonder how startups do valuations. If any of your startups need valuations, I'm happy to help. And if I ever get a founder who's like, hey, we don't understand, we're talking to these people and they're asking us for a valuation. We don't understand how to calculate our valuation. I'm like, I've got somebody who you can talk to. And I go in and go like, hey, do you have 2 hours to spend with X person? And they're like, yeah, I can make Friday afternoon. I can spend Friday afternoon with them. I meet so-and-so and spend Friday afternoon with them. And they'll come back and they'll be like, that's an amazing business. Where did you find them? Oh, they're in our program. Then the mentors will also be like, hey, the entrepreneurs will also be like, thank you very much. We had no idea. We didn't consider this, and sitting down with X person, he showed us this, and this. So they're not formally engaged in a month-to-month or week-to-week process of mentoring, but there are a lot of people in the ecosystem now that we can call on and say, and that's what we call informal mentorship, that we can call on and say, hey, can you spend some time with this entrepreneur? But also, sometimes it's a case of we're working with a cohort of entrepreneurs and then we see there's a common challenge like, oh, these guys are struggling with this topic. Hi, can you come and teach something on social media planning? Yeah, I can come and do an hour on social media planning, and then they come and teach that part. Yeah.
But just to understand the formal part of mentorship, so I understand it's also a 3-month thing. Mentors are connected one-on-one with founders,
Yeah.
and they have a certain cadence. Could you talk a little bit about the actual like cadence and any specific formal stuff that is included around mentorship? You mentioned like some kind of training. So is it required? Some validation, is it required? And what happens after this 3 months is over and they still want to stay in touch, for example? Is Bongo?
Oh, yeah. So the way we do it is, so it's not really training. It's sort of like an introductory workshop that just takes about 2 hours, that walks the mentors through a process of when you first meet with your entrepreneur, maybe you want to ask these questions to get to know them. And then maybe you also want to set up a regular time that you can both block off, where you can catch up with the entrepreneur. And then these are the various things that an entrepreneur might be looking for from a mentor. It sort of like just helps new mentors understand what this is, because we're of the opinion, BongoHive, we're of the opinion that you can never have too many mentors in the ecosystem. And that's okay for us, is that they might not be mentoring in our programs, they might end up mentoring in other programs, but that's good for the ecosystem. As far as we're concerned, that's even better for the ecosystem, the more people that know how to mentor. And so they then get in touch. So we help them we've got templates that help them set agreements with the entrepreneur that they're meeting with, that say, over a period of 3 months, we will meet every 2 weeks or every week or so many times. To then do that, you will sort of like just setting up expectations between them, is that I will hold you accountable on milestones that you've informed me about, but I also promise not to share your secrets with other people. That kind of create a safe environment between the two, between the entrepreneur and a safe relationship between the entrepreneur and the mentor. Then after 3 months, because we've asked them for 3 months, we've had entrepreneurs who continue to meet with the founder that even after the 3 months. We've had mentors who've gone and invested in the business after the 3 months is over, and their relationship continues long after that. But we just take the 3 months that we're with them, and if they want to formally, informally continue the relationship after that, that's fine by us.
And is this mentorship relationship happening in parallel to like a boot camp kind of thing, or is it?
Yes, it tends to be in parallel with the program. So what we do is bring a cohort of entrepreneurs into a program and bring a cohort of mentors at the same time, and then match them so that they run the 3 months together.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you so much for sharing. Are there any is there, from the BongoHive or program perspective, do you look inside what's happening in those mentorship relationships? Are you getting any reports if anything happened, or this is like on mentor and mentee to figure out and kind of not necessarily share?
Yeah, I'm aware that there have been a number of trials at mentorship platforms that sort of like automate the reporting and the engagement to say, did you meet? What was the quality of the relationship? And I think that's valuable. When we first saw those 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the challenge was getting to a place where it works if everybody buys into using the platform, and if the mentor just sees it as like, listen, I can set this in my calendar and I'll have regular meetings with the person, then they're not going to be on platform. So it's the case like if you can onboard the mentor onto platform and you can onboard the entrepreneurs onto platform, that's easy. Onboarding the entrepreneurs is the easy part, because as they come into the program, if we say you have to be part of this platform, they'll get it. Onboarding the mentors, on the other hand, is like, hey, Simunza, I have a busy life. I've seen the various invitations you've sent me for your platform. I just don't have the time to figure out how your platform works. Now, I have a choice. Is adherence to the platform a big thing for me, or is the value of the time I know this entrepreneur can offer to the startup founder more valuable for me? I go with the latter. I'll be like, yeah, the value of the time is more important, so let me see if that happens. So how we then check for quality of engagement is by giving the entrepreneurs and the mentors channels where they can give feedback on how their relationship is going. So with the mentors, meet them so in the 3 months, meet them at midpoint to say, how are things going with your founder? Have you met yet? How are your meetings going? Is everything okay? Whether it's like an email that just checks in with like, have you met with the founder? How are things going? And they're like, no, I haven't yet met with my founder. We're meeting next week. How did your meeting go? Oh, no, it went well, so and so on. Then with the entrepreneurs, it's more regular. We can do that more regularly because we've got various channels where we can engage them. To then say, oh, how meetings going? Oh, I met with my mentor last week, and oh, I've had founders who are like, oh, I'm meeting my mentor next week. Then the next time you meet them, how did your meeting go? Oh, it was amazing. We discussed XYZ and they gave me these tips, or they connected me to XY person. And sometimes where it's been unfortunate, it's a case of my mentor never shows up. They just don't have the time. Then we're like, okay, cool. Let's find you someone else to connect with, so that you can actually connect with somebody. Or it can be, we've had only 1 or 2 incidences where it's been my mentor started soliciting me for this other thing and asked me to pay for this, and we were like, that wasn't what we were expecting. You're clearly uncomfortable with it, so yeah, let's sort that out.
Yeah, it's funny. I love your point about like getting people on the platform, because as you know, like we've built a platform, Traction 5.
Yeah.
Started with the same idea that we don't want people to use our platform. So the platform is essentially for the program, and what people get is emails, just emails. You get like, fill out it.
Oh yeah, that's
this is the invite. But we start getting pushback, and right now people say, I want to get onto your platform. It doesn't let me. Where can I get the information? So now we are building features where mentors are saying, look, Igor, your platform is not clear, but guys, we haven't built the platform for you. We want to get access to the platform. So we are kind of
interesting.
That's
interesting.
But it's interesting. It's hard. Mentors are probably the hardest audience, but this is the challenge.
Yeah, they are.
Right now. I have one last question for you. Looking ahead, what is like your and BongoHive's plans for the future, and how are you planning to continue like evolving and growing the organization to better serve entrepreneurs in Zambia and beyond?
Yeah, so now we're looking at what does Southern Africa look like? How can we help entrepreneurs across Southern Africa? How can we work with other hubs in Southern Africa to give entrepreneurs a quality experience in them building the businesses that they're doing? I mean, I have a lot of respect for founders. They spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to not only get an idea off the ground, but also bring in customers, serve a multitude of customers, get feedback on their program, which is not always pleasant, and then on top of that, try to get this viable, try to keep this viable and growing. And so our case is, how can we come in and create an experience that that doesn't burden them, but helps them not only get refreshed, but also look at their businesses again more critically and make better decisions that they start to see results from. Such that if it means that if it ends up being they've built a business that is investor worthy, then they've got a case that they can pitch towards investors very well. If they're bootstrapping a business, then they've got a business that grows from $400 to $100,000 and hopefully beyond that.
Very cool. Thank you so much for your time, Simunza. I have so many additional questions to ask, and the time is so limited, but I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
No, thank you. This has been I've enjoyed the conversation, and even the previous conversations we've had, definitely in the build up to this. And it's always I'm always happy to meet people who are working with entrepreneurs from around the world. There's a lot that we can still learn about how to support entrepreneurs.